So why reimagine governance? And, the first thing that comes to mind for me is, of course, why not? There is such an opportunity to do governance differently, to do it better. I think there is an overdue interruption, an intervention in terms of governance that, if done well, really can have long-lasting impact across our sectors.
The model of governance in our sector has been broken for as long as I've been in the sector. If there's one topic when you put 10 executive directors together that you uniformly will bring up, it is the barriers that the traditional governance model creates in doing innovative, effective, high impact work.
Knowing how much governance has continued to stay the same over the years and just follows this kind of archaic model that doesn't really meet the needs of, I think, most organizations, and especially a youth-led one like ours, it felt important to reimagine governance with new possibilities of how do we understand this powered relationship of governance to the rest of the organization, unpaid labor in relation to who has power and who can do that labor or feels like they have the skills or the confidence to join boards. So it also felt like an opportunity to reimagine how do we create that container and how do we do decision-making as an organization.
So if we reimagine governance, reimagine the folks that can be involved in making decisions about our organizations and our impacts, how we use our resources, how we show our accountability to our communities, because at the end of the day, our accountability is to communities in the nonprofit and charitable sector. That then opens up a whole bunch of opportunities to do different work and to think differently about how we can achieve our impacts in the future.
I think this is a real opportunity for organizations to view the future different than the past and say that part of that future includes a different way of thinking about how we're governed.
I think that the entire concept of governance, generally speaking, as I understand the history of it, since it's been turned into, let's say, an industry maybe 30 years ago or so, is that every part of it lacks imagination in the first place, right? So it's partly reimagining, but it's partly just imagining from the beginning, which I think is important.
The world is very different than it used to be. The nonprofit sector is very different than it used to be. We aspire to something so much greater than what we are currently achieving. And to really modernize the sector, we have to modernize governance.
There's big challenges on board shoulders. And so, reimagining governance, is a time to think, okay, so how can we make the best decisions and how can we, again, be a movement for change, positive change in our community? And do we have everything in the toolbox to be a movement for positive change?
We don't often open up our governance toolbox and look inside and ask ourselves, do we have the best tools to achieve our purpose or our mission? What's missing? Who's missing? And what can we improve in this toolbox? I've been in governance for a number of years, and I've never intentionally sat down and had that conversation. And I'm curious what would happen if we did. So I think it's important to do that work, and it's important to create space and time to do that work.
And so there's a real opportunity and need to do differently and better. Someone asked me recently, well, why now? Why are we choosing to reimagine governance at this time? And again, I go back to why not, but I also go back to this moment in time, which is unique. We have multiple pandemics, afoot. We've never seen a world like this. And I think, folks are not going to argue that social, racial justice reckoning is long overdue and has been long fought for. So the world is changing. The world is being reimagined. The status quo was never good enough. And so, the why now? Because we should, because we must, and we can, right? Reimagine something that is different and better for all of us.
We need to open up and just think about governance differently so that we are able to respond to the environment. in more creative, engaging, energizing, vitalizing ways. We can get complacent with feeling like we're doing all the right things without necessarily responding to the environment, which is in the coming challenges, which I think we need to get ready for.
Boards need to get out of the way of good governance. Yeah. And I think that the idea of reimagining and really going back to the first principles of what is governance, how do we think about it as an ecosystem, understand the role of all of the stakeholders, how do we understand what role the board plays as a part of that is so important in order for boards to enable that resilience and flexibility that the sector needs.
Wanting to do things differently, not to simply do things differently, but just because there's a realization that there's a no model out there that needs to be shaken up. And the conversations that can come out of it, I think, are fascinating. Even if the governance doesn't change overnight, the fact that organizations, individuals are having conversations and debating those issues, I think is a really healthy sign for the sector.
No change is too small coming out of any reimagining. I think a lot of people have the perception that it is a large step change that is required from this process, but even minor tweaks or ways of thinking of processes or improvements that haven't been thought of before are wins for any organization.
Now is the time to provoke a shift in governance, to really think deeply about how our system, in the nonprofit sector has been created and functions, and what the opportunities are to then build a new governance system, which will look differently for every organization, in order to again focus on achieving the outcomes that our missions are designed to achieve.
So more than ever, I think creativity and innovation throughout organizations, whether they be with the committees, with volunteers, with staff, or the board, will help prepare for current and future shifts, identifying new opportunities that will really enable sustainability of nonprofits and charities.
If we want to actually achieve the kind of impact we all claim we want to achieve, and if we want to thrive and even survive in an era of rapid change and complexity, I think this work is essential. I don't think we have a choice. This isn't about we can do the old way or we can do this new way and we decide which we like better. I just don't think there's a choice. So I think this kind of work is really imperative for organizations who want to have an impact, who want to make meaningful change or make beautiful art, and who want to be around in order to do that work in this era.